Hey everybody, this is Steve. Now, are you somebody who struggles to feel positive all the time? Are you somebody who feels at odds with yourself when you try to force it? Well, don't worry if you are, because you really are not alone. In fact, I think this is a much more common experience than people think. And in this video, I'm going to explain why you don't need to force positivity on yourself, why you don't need to fake positive feelings. I'm going to explain why it's actually more important to develop a more honest relationship with your feelings. And stay with me to the end, because I'm going to show you how we can be more at peace with how we feel without having to put on that fake smile and force those positive feelings. Now, as a coach since 2016, I've gone deep into lots of ideas around positivity and what you might call healthy psychology. And what I'm going to share today comes from my experiences with presence intelligence and a program called What Every Person Can Do, which is a program all about excellence and deep grounding. So if this is something that interests you, then give me a like, click that like button. And if you're interested in this kind of content, or if you're a professional person, then don't forget to subscribe, click that subscription button, and don't forget to click the notifications bell which comes after it, so that you'll get notified when new content arrives. Now, the first thing I want to get across is that when people talk about positivity, different people mean different things by that. There is being positive as in being optimistic, of having faith, of always assuming things are going to turn out fine. There is positivity as in always putting the positive spin on whatever's happening. And that can degrade into out and out telling ourselves a fictional story about where we are. But then there's also positivity as being honest about where we are and how we feel, but always taking the most constructive step from where we are. What is the most useful thing we can do next? What is the most constructive, the most productive thing that we can do? Positivity as self-deception is something that I think is highly flawed, and it can get us into trouble. However, positivity as in always asking the question, what's the most useful thing to do next? I can't think of a situation where that wouldn't be desirable, especially when you bear in mind that the most productive thing to do next might be to actually stop for now, rest, recuperate, regather, come back later. Now, the other point that I want to make is about affirmations, because being positive is often associated with affirmations. That's telling ourselves positive things. Now, there's no doubt that there's a degree of self-hypnosis that goes on with that internal voice. And if that internal voice that we use to commentate on our lives to ourselves is always telling us a negative story, then it's putting those negative ideas in our minds, and we're going to experience those as real, even though it's really just a bit of self-hypnosis. And the obvious counter to that is, well, why don't we just put positive ideas in our head instead? Why don't we just put positive self-talk in our head? And there is some merit to that. There is no doubt about it, and it's worth experimenting with. The problem is, though, is when people try to use positive affirmations and they're just not feeling it. Now, when that happens, it can just feel like you're lying to yourself. And that can complicate things. It can start to feel like self-gaslighting, if you want to put it in those terms. I definitely think it's worth experimenting with and finding out where you are with the idea of using positive affirmations and positive self-talk to create a more positive self-hypnosis. But do monitor yourself. If you feel like you're just not feeling it, and it feels like you're just lying to yourself and that you're self-gaslighting, then stop, it's not working. Now, an idea that I'd like to get across to you is the idea that feelings are a little bit like the weather. If you think about the weather and you think about the whole world ecosystem, the rain is just as important in that system as the sun. Now, we like it when it's sunny, we don't like it so much when it's raining, but both are actually very important to a healthy overall ecosystem. And if we look at our emotions like an ecosystem, I think there's something similarly true. Our emotions are a communication from within ourselves, which we should listen to. And sometimes we might want to overrule its advice and sometimes not. I would say that's part of your emotional intelligence. But the thing is, though, is that, for example, when people cry, I see that as a healthy emotional cleansing process. I don't see that as a bad thing. When we are feeling disillusioned, I take that as a signal to, look, let's stop for now. You're pushing on something and it's not working. Stop for now, back off, come down from it, relax, see how you feel about it tomorrow. Whereas positively pushing through is likely to just complicate it, make it harder, make it work even less. It's like if we resist resting when we feel tired, then we start to get super tired. It's like when you resist the natural ebbs and flows of your emotional weather system, if you want to call it that, the more you try and stop the rain coming, the more the weather gets extreme. And we've all experienced how when you bottle up feelings rather than address feelings as they come up, those feelings amplify and eventually they just explode. So when positivity comes about pushing those emotions down and overruling those emotions, drowning them out, shouting over them, if you like, I don't think you are necessarily doing your emotional ecosystem a lot of good. So what's the alternative? Well, what I learned from presence intelligence, what I learned from what every person can do, is it is definitely possible and sometimes important to take ownership of how you feel. But rather than force positivity when you're not feeling it and suppress low feelings when you don't want to feel them, relax into how you genuinely are in this moment. Be at peace with what's going on. If it's raining or whether it's sunny, just be at peace with the fact that right now, that's the weather that the system needs. Listen to the signals. If the signals are, it's time to stop pushing on something that's not working, stop pushing on something that's not working. If the signals are, you're tired, go to bed. It's resisting these signals that really upsets the natural ebbs and flows of that weather system. And by the way, I want to make a really important point here. I am talking about all these things in the context of the well person. I'm not talking in the context of actual mental illness or anything like that. I am not addressing anything like that. But in the healthy individual, our emotions are generally wise. And to some extent, that just means going along with what those signals are telling us. Now, I get it that in the real world, the so-called real world, we can't always do things like that. I mean, if I feel tired at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm working, I can't really go and sleep then. I kind of have to carry on with what I'm doing and come back to that. And sometimes you do need to do that. Sometimes you need to notice what the emotions are telling you, and you have to say, well, look, I can't attend to that right now. But you kind of make a deal with yourself that you're going to deal with it at the earliest possible opportunity. So you carry on with what you have to do and attend to it when you can attend to it. So sometimes you do have to park it. I get that. And yes, sometimes you do need to take ownership of those feelings. Sometimes you do need to override them because of context. But do that sparingly. And of course, I recognize that talking about it like a weather system is a metaphor, and I hope you get that too. Now, if maintaining a healthy emotional ecosystem, if you want to call it that, is something that you'd like to have more conversation about, then I would certainly love to hear from you, and you'll find my contact details in the pinned comment below this video. But most of all, if this is the kind of content that you're interested in, or you're a professional person who is interested in both excellence and deep grounding, then please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the notifications bell so that you'll get notifications when new content arrives.